Hey, this is Mr.Bisht English Guru from Spoken in front of you to tell as to English language, and here today I'm going to discuss a topic, and the topic is why we are unable to speak English as the other people speak in front of us. So do you know that why we are unable to speak English? Okay, do not know, no problem at all, my dear friends. Definitely I will tell you that why we are unable to speak English. Actually there are some basic reasons behind it, and the first reason is lack of grammar. Actually the thing is that we do not have proper knowledge of grammar. That's why we are unable to speak English. For speak English, it means we must have knowledge of grammar. Getting my point? And the second thing is your lack of vocabulary. Unless until we have vocabulary, we cannot speak even a single word. We cannot make our sentences. We cannot convey a message to those who are listening to us, my dear friends. It means, goes without saying, we need both things, grammar and vocabulary as well. Now question simply arises that if we need both things, grammar and vocabulary as well, now question simply arises that how can we get to know as to grammar, how can we get to know as to vocabulary? Right now, as you can see, I'm speaking in front of you and I'm able to speak in front of you. It means I have both things. I have knowledge of grammar, I have knowledge of vocabulary. That's why I'm able to speak English. The question simply arises that how can we get to know as to both things? Yeah, definitely. If somebody asks me this one question, so I will answer in a simple way. By listening, my dear friends. By listening, we can get to know as to both things. We can get to know as to grammar. We can get to know as to vocabulary, my dear friends. Without listening, we cannot get to know as to both things. Just take an example. For example, I have something in my hand. What is this? Yeah, definitely you call it pen, and I also call it pen. The question simply arises that how did we get to know that it is called pen? By listening, my dear friends, because we have been listening since our childhood that it is called pen. That's why we have been calling it pen. One more thing I have, this is a bat switch. Now how did I get to know that it is called bat switch? By listening, my dear friends. So if you really want to know as to your vocabulary, as to your grammar, you will have to listen something or the other related to your vocabulary, related to your grammar. Unless until you listen, you cannot get to as to both in, my dear friends. Getting my point? So what you have to do, you have to listen, my dear friends. Suppose now whatever I'm telling you and whatever I have told you, you are doing that thing and you have started doing that thing, but even though you are unable to speak English, now you have knowledge of grammar, now you have knowledge of vocabulary, you have good vocabularies and you have knowledge of grammar, but even though you are unable to speak English, you are listening daily, but even though you are unable to speak English, now why? What I have told you, you are doing all these things, but unless until you do that thing, you cannot speak English, because one more thing is left, my dear friends, and that thing is very important. Your grammar, your vocabulary and your listening are not going to work unless until you do that thing. You have to do that thing and you'll have to get into that thing. Unless until you get into that thing, you cannot do and you cannot speak even a single word in English. So what is that thing, my dear friends? Yeah, that thing is your practice, my dear friends. Practice is must. Unless until you practice, my dear friends, all these things, whatever you are doing, whatever you have, your grammar, your vocabulary, your listening, these things are not going to work, my dear friends. You cannot apply all these things unless until you practice. It means you will have to practice, you will have to get into practice for speaking even a single word in English, my dear friends. Right now I'm able to speak English. How? Because I did a lot of practice. You know what? When I was a learner at the time, I was unable to speak English, and I asked my sir, just tell me that how can I improve my English? My sir simply told me, Deepak, just do one thing, just to practice, and definitely once you will be able to speak English. And the same thing happened to me, and I started speaking English, my dear friends. How? Because I did a lot of practice. If I hadn't done a practice a lot of at the time, I wouldn't have been in front of you people, my dear friends. Just because of that thing, I'm here today. So what you have to do? You have to practice a lot. Actually, I think so that you must have heard about a thing that practice makes the man perfect. Yeah, definitely practice makes the man perfect. Just to practice for your speaking. I'm not talking about only your speaking, I'm just talking about all skills. Whether you are learning your driving skill, unless until you practice of your driving skill, you cannot drive properly. Getting my points? If you really want to be perfect in your life, you will have to practice of that thing, my dear friends. So the purpose of today's topic is practice, my dear friends. You have to practice, because nowadays we are free and we are supposed to practice a lot, as much as we can do. my dear friends. So without saying more on this topic, definitely I'm just going to put my words to end, and definitely in next one video I'll bring something new for you people. Till then, keep practicing and ciao.